Hello and welcome to another week of Invisible Walls. I'm Ryan Stevens. I'm joined by Brandon Jones.
Hi, everybody.
And Marcus Beer.
Hola.
And we got the beards going.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
He's got some stubble.
I didn't get the memo.
He hasn't shaved for 3 weeks. He's just so boyishly
He's got a
good
hormone
looking.
deficiency. He is the Dick Clark of GameTrailers.
Oh, nice.
Pre-stroke.
Good.
That was mean. Anyway, I think we're going to kick it off with Grand Theft Auto Online.
Yeah.
And Jones as the big fan, and Marcus being more than a dear dabbler in the arts of the GTA.
I'm getting more interested in GTA 5 every time they're bringing it out, and we obviously discussed the last trailer, and the big question was, what they do in multiplayer,
and they had the tease,
but we talked about, wouldn't it be great if you could do all the heists together and plan heists? And what did they announce today?
They stole our ideas.
They did.
Are we getting royalty checks?
I want money.
But I mean, you seem obviously happy about it because that's all the stuff we kind of they kind of graced all our ideas.
I like co-op. I do, and I've said in the past I don't like multiplayer games. I think there are certain things that don't need co-op. It's shoehorned in. But for me, an organic co-op where it is planning a heist, executing with people you trust and people your friends on Xbox, PlayStation, hopefully PC, etc. That to me is, it's like being part of a raid in World of Warcraft. That's where being in a raid and having those tactics really came through.
And what's your initial impressions?
The biggest thing for me was the apartment in the garage. That sounded really great to have like a social hub where all your friends can meet. Because it sounds like everything's going to be very activity based. So it's like, oh, well, you're going to join with your friends to, do a heist. And it's like, well, I get home from work, it's 6:30 and my friend doesn't get home till like 7:15. What am I doing for 45 minutes? It's nice to just meet at my apartment, and you go and hang out. And I'm assuming that's instanced. I'm assuming that's not like, oh, I can see you, because you have the one guy in his apartment when the jets fly by. So I don't know if that was a tease, if the room he was in was his apartment, or if that's just a random room in a building, because he's able to see all of these other random events that are happening outside there. And I think that's probably my biggest question, is where the lines are. It's like, how does this stuff load? If I'm golfing, can I just be run over by, a taxi?
Yeah, it looks like a lot of that stuff is going to be really...
Like, do I have to wait for other people
going.
to finish golfing before I start golfing, or are there some activities that kind of like put you into an instanced area?
Well, what I keep hearing is it's a sandbox within a sandbox sort of thing. So
yeah, and it just, where's the line
things.
between the first and second sandbox?
Wouldn't
is my
golf
biggest
be
question.
a sandbox bunker within a sandbox within a sandbox?
Whoa.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, meta,
It's
man.
turtles all the way down, man.
I find it, I know why, GTA 5 and, the apartment thing appeals to a lot of people in Los Angeles, because it's the only time they'll ever be able to get a decent apartment
It's
here.
true, yeah. The only time I'll ever live downtown, ever.
Exactly.
A nice loft.
Yeah. But that seems really exciting, and specifically the garage. It's always nice to claim ownership over stuff in an open world, and so to just like log in, grab your favorite Lamborghini, and take off.
And I mean, this also kind of goes to what we were talking about, where we want MMOs to go. Maybe I'm kind of getting a little tunnel vision, a little too much for what I think this is. But hello. But anyway, sorry, we had some visitors.
It's persistence. It's
that level of persistence, but it's also I think it's a 16-player max in the city. So it's that kind of low density, kind of like Daisy, Warzy has been really popular. I really think we are kind of heading towards a singularity, if I can kind of wax poetic here for a second, for how online games are going to be. And I know it's not quite up there with the Splinter Cell game, not Division, which was kind of demoed and kind of also had that idea of, and Watch Dogs to a degree, and of course Dark Souls. But I like this idea, like the thing I like consequences, and the idea that everyone keeps talking about is, if we do a bank heist, you get all the money, I can kill you and then take all the money and run to the bank. And the bank there is a level of security there.
Why would you rob a bank and then run to the bank?
You have to run to the other bank.
You're
actually hired. That's a good point.
The bank would retake other banks' money.
Or like taking out a race. If you see on, if I log in and then I find out like, oh, four of my friends have just started a 4-person race, but I know where they are, it'd be like, getting a bus and just like slamming into one of your friends.
So I have a question. What version are you going to play? Are you going to get 360 or PS3?
360 probably.
Okay, I'm now going to get the 360. I'm going to add you so I can go and rob your apartment.
There you go. Yeah.
Case the joint.
And I would enjoy that. Especially if it's 16 player. I think that's really smart. If the big message that I took from the last trailer they came out with is that multiple people will be doing different activities in the same environment.
Mm-hmm.
And it seemed like you had that guy in the jet, and there were clearly some guys that were obviously doing a street race or some like cops and robbers thing. And so to drop, like nukes on a guy that's doing, trying to escape from a bank heist.
Yeah, and it sounds like in the new reputation system, you can call in all these perks like whenever you want, and there will be some. They said they're starting simply with like races and death matches, but there will be competitive modes as well. I think the big problem I had of GTA 4 was the kind of the auto aim, which took off all skill.
Right.
Especially in the lobby, like literally no skill. I'm not like some people kind of trump that stuff up, but it's literally locked onto someone. You hold the trigger a couple times and someone will die. So I'm curious to see how they're going to deal with that. But I'm also curious how this is going to integrate into GTA 5, and it is a separate game technically.
Yeah,
which is weird messaging. What it comes out 2 weeks after the game ships or something like that. But they said it's the same city. It takes place before GTA 5. So I'm curious if that stuff's going to actually have. Is there going to be like this narrative pull, like with the missions? Is it going to be beyond the objectives? Are they actually going to have like this kind of through line? And then how do you keep that ongoing? And I'm so excited by this, like the content and stuff. I remember fucking around with the PC mods. The PC mods for GTA, I want to say Vice City. I want to say they let you go online.
Yeah.
It may have been GTA 3, and just fucking
I think
around.
3.
And
Yeah,
it worked.
they've always had
This was
multiplayer
just
since 3.
just like shoehorning it in. It wasn't even Rockstar. And I remember back when I'm getting excited here. Sorry. I remember back when
I'm waiting for your
Rockstar.
head to explode.
Well, I remember when Rockstar was putting 4 out, and they're like, everyone talks about Rockstar GTA games like it's these cool stories, this crazy chaos, and they were like kind of like the PR guy was kind of casually like, yeah, we're actually kind of not focused on that. We're kind of focused on multiplayer, and I think obviously they buffed the story to a T, I believe, but with all the options and stuff. But it seems like they really have been spending the last 5 years or whatnot, after the lights that were Red Dead Redemption, really making this thing. I feel good and confident that they're making it a separate product. I just think the messaging here is a little weird. Likewise with the trailer. I felt like the trailer kind of whet the appetite, but she's so trying to explain things that it was kind of a mixed message where I'm like, you're telling me things, but it's not enough things where I can make enough cohesive dots.
She didn't really get into specifics, and that's what I would like to know. She was like, yeah, you can golf. And it's like, where do I golf? Do I have to go to the golf, do I have to go to the golf course to start the golf thing? Do I have to stand in a specific spot? Does one person do that? If you see one of your friends do that in a 16-player match, can all of you join then? If that's the case, then do you even need to be there when you start it? When you do start it, can it be interrupted? What if how many people can play golf at any one time? If 4 people play golf, can 4 people play
You really
with
like
them
golf,
while they're
don't
playing?
you?
Can you play golf with hand grenades?
It's a great example of a typical non-GTA activity that they're adding to this world. It's like we all think of robbing banks and driving cars and planes around, but I just think it looks like there's going on bike races and stuff like that. The one thing where they jumped off bikes and went parachuting, is that just them goofing around, or were they actually going to get some kind of points for that? I thought there was going to be more specifics, which was a little aloof.
Well, I mean, it is Rockstar, and they pick and choose their messaging, and they will message what they want when they want.
And I'm buying the game anyway, so it's not like I'm complaining.
I do think it's a smart move for them to not release the online component until a couple of weeks after. I think I know a lot of people are going to be pissed, like, I want to play it right away. But I think it actually, one, allows Rockstar to judge server loads, fine tune, gives people a chance to really. I'm guessing there's going to be a lot of new game mechanics in GTA 5 in the single player that will pass on into multiplayer. And I think it's smart that people will line up day one. This is going to sell 7 to 10 to 12 million units, whatever it's going to sell in the first month alone. And I think it's a very smart decision, and I think there's a lot of people who are going to want to be online that day.
Well, I'm going to be one of the people that's pissed, but I think it's good to actually split that identity if they're really trying to make it its own identity. I mean,
and it gives you 2 weeks to play it. It gives you 2 weeks to, finish GTA 5, and then you're ready for this new environment with the season pass.
Yeah, I mean, how they're going to be updating it and whatnot's going to be interesting. And again, the lingering question. Obviously, with all the hints of the PC version out there, there's the lingering question of the next gen stuff. And maybe this is the part where the Xbox can try to use its cloud messiah to try to, kind of, I don't know. I feel like with Rockstar and all this kind of like, the sell through, like, you can think of it like Black Ops, but it's still kind of just server to server, peer to peer stuff. This sort of thing is where, again, like an MMO, but how it's so like part and parcel instead of just running a giant spreadsheet. I'm sorry, I'm kind of using some inside baseball terminology for how I describe Warcraft. I think this could be an actually interesting potential for whatever the cloud could possibly do. On that, speaking of open world games, Brandon, can you stick around and talk about Saints Row for a couple seconds?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah. So Marcus, you've been playing the
Saints
Saints
Row
Row
the
the
Fourth.
Fourth.
Aye.
I wanted to give it a funny name, but I couldn't think of one. I think you may have liked it a little bit more than our reviewer, but I'm curious to get your 2 cents.
I'll give you more than my 2 cents. I'll give you the full bloody dollar. In fact,
Okay.
yeah,
Infinite
I've made no
penny for a
bones
pound.
about this. That Saints Row, especially, as soon as they sort of like turned things up in Saints Row 2 and made it more off the wall, every time it's progressed, it actually got a bigger piece of my heart than GTA did, especially GTA 4. And we talked about Nico not being the protagonist that we could fall in love with. And I think the Saints were the total opposite of Nico. And, you could fall in love with these characters and you could customize it. And I think Saints Row 4, I mean, it's unapologetically one huge in-joke. Everything in that game, especially if you are a pop culture junkie, like I am. I mean, there are so many references to the 80s and to the 90s and, the early part of this millennium. I mean, the use of an Aerosmith soundtrack or Hadaway, What is Love, and how the character reacts to it. I mean, that reminds me of Saints Row 2, where you'd sit in the car and Take On Me by a-ha would come in and the characters would start singing along and bouncing their heads in the car. Just this random little Easter egg.
Touches.
Yeah, and I think that's what this game has. And I have not finished the game. And I'll tell you why I've not finished the game, because there are so many side quests, and I'm so basically committed to getting as much of Steel Town in the simulation back under my control. So I start, I'm generating the revenue to buy bigger and better things. That, I mean, I've deviated from the main quest. I have done a fair amount of exploration. I've got out of the simulation. I've freed Keith David.
Good job.
He is awesome.
Thank
He is
goodness.
he's fun. But I mean, this is the thing. The game is fun. Is it glitchy? Yes. I mean, the engine creaks a little. I'm playing it on 360, and creaky in certain areas. Big explosions. Frame rate goes through the floor. You're talking to somebody, and they'll be off in a different direction. There are a lot of those glitches, but they don't pull me out of the game, because I think there's part of my head that says, guess what? You're in a simulation. You're going to see these glitches anyway. So, I can actually buy in and suspend the disbelief that this is not necessarily the game engine. This is actually the simulation engine.
Give me that Kool-Aid, man. I want to drink that.
It just...
No, I love that.
It's
That's great.
one of those few things that, because the game doesn't strive for realism and doesn't strive for accuracy because of the superpowers and all the other batshit stuff, this actually kind of works.
That's a small aside. I am one of the few people in the world that loves San Francisco Rush on the N64. And you remember the N64 was infamous for fog, for, hiding Z buffering and stuff like that. And I remember being like, but it's San Francisco. It's supposed to have fog. Sorry.
But
stupid.
again, sometimes that PR spin works. And like I said, I mean, for me, it fits in. I think, it's... it's a love letter to pop culture.
Can I ask you something, though? Because you got to see the South Park RPG, Stick of Truth, earlier this year, pre-3, I believe it was. And there was this thing where it's like, you guys saw a shortish demo, but it was like the jokes are already starting. Like, the problem with humor is it's a vicious engine, right? Like, a joke's only funny once, sort of thing. Does Saints Row, from what I've seen, I think it does, is kind of maybe a little rhetorical, but does it throw on enough of the jokes and just keep fucking piling them into the engine, so the jokes are just constantly hitting?
It does,
because humor is hard to pull off. We've been talking about this a lot. There's this jazz punk indie game recently, and humor is really hard to pull off consistently.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the 3DO game with Dennis Miller. That was basically him just answering quips and giving one-liners. That was an example of
not even you have heard of this game. That's
look
obscure.
it up.
Plumbers don't
It's
wear ties?
really obscure. So basically, yes, the jokes are actually well placed, because I mean, they basically put the jokes around the main quest and the set pieces. There are some repetition when you're off doing the side quests, or if you're off just collecting bits of code to get your power up, or if you're doing a hack to get one of the stores returned from from the bad guys to you. But it's not hugely noticeable. But I mean, I would say that I've watched a number of reviews, and people have made very valid points. Are the superpowers overpowering? Does it take you out of it? Blah blah blah. I would basically say that anybody who's reviewed this game who hasn't spent X amount of time doing all those side quests and unlocking everything is missing out. I mean, I am. Let me see. I've got 26% of the game completed. And that doesn't sound like a huge amount. Yeah, all of it, I have now got enough of Steelport converted to Saints area that I can wander around certain areas safely. I have a lot of cachet, which is the money. That's coming into my bank account. I have unlocked all the super blast powers now. So I have telekinesis. I have, I have the fire. I have, actually, I don't have mind control yet. But telekinesis is awesome. I mean, every time you unlock something, it just feels so cool, and it offers these branching paths to other areas that if you just go from A to Z, or A to B rather, you miss out on so much of the game.
Well, and going back to Saints Row 3, very, very briefly, I felt like it was a game where it was kind of fun to kind of go through it, but then sometimes it wasn't actually so much fun to play.
Yeah, I had that issue. There were some levels that were a grind.
With a game in the late 2000s. Wait, God, we're in the
Late
early
2000s.
teens. Sorry, I was going to say the late 2000s.
Was it 3 years ago?
But I'm just saying, at like this point, I feel like if you have enough of these trappings, it can be okay. But I can still sometimes you can kind of see the forest through the trees and be like, I'm doing this in service, but it's like you said, it's sometimes sort of a grind. Sometimes it's not fun while you're trying to hit the next piece. It's not mechanically satisfying. I'm not sure if making it easier is maybe an answer or a cheat or a kludge to that.
Well, I think it's look. I'll give you an example. You pick up a mission, and then you have a mission all the way over the other side of Steelport, and it's like, how do I get there? What am I going to do? Is this going to be a long run through the streets or whatever? But I mean, that's the thing. Now you have these options. I can go a la Flash and just go woof, woof, woof through the streets, picking up points and stuff, and I may stumble upon some codes. I may just fly and glide. I can call up the Void ship or the Chrome Void, which I've just unlocked, which is also really awesome, and just peg around the city and again see some cool things. I might want to stop and blow up some more Zinyak statues, and it's that level of it's a grind, but it doesn't feel like a grind.
Well, then it's not then, right?
Yeah, it feels like, oh, okay, well, I call up my map. I haven't been in this area yet. I haven't unlocked anything here, but I can, get rid of some enemy code here, or I can drop a virus in, and they have enough of that to keep on going. And then when you get back to the ship, when you use a gateway to get back and pick up your single player missions, or the main quest missions, they all seem to fit organically. I mean, this is just, like I said, for me,
you like it better than 3?
Yes, much better than 3, and I like 3.
Does it satisfy the Crackdown itch?
Definitely.
The orbs
Crackdown,
in particular?
Crackdown or Infamous. I mean, it has that vibe to it, especially, like I said, when you start to unlock the new stuff. And I got to say, the fact that it's so customizable is insane. The fact that you can pick make any character you want, download a character from the community site, give, a buxom, 9-foot blonde woman Nolan North's voice.
How are the dildos?
Tentacle bats.
Oh, cool.
It's
cool.
tentacle bats. But actually, the only thing that does disappoint me is the famous dubstep gun. It really is just doesn't. I mean, I've not upgraded it or super, overclocked it or anything, but I like the abduction gun way better. The fact that I can open up a big thing and it sucks everybody up.
Is there a twerk gun or is there a twerk setting
I'm
on
guessing,
the dubstep gun?
Well, I'm guessing now that there will be, considering the game is moddable on PC and if Volition and Deep Silver are really pushing that, there's going to be some batshit crazy stuff on the PC.
I'm glad I stuck around for this conversation.
No, really quick though. As the guy who loves open world games, who loves Red Dead, loves GTA, what's your feelings at this point? Are you going to try to dabble?
Yeah,
I know you're playing your
over
own open world game right now.
Right. I've been looking over people's shoulders, and I haven't actually picked up the controller of Saints Row. I played Saints Row before, and I played the third. I think the two things that didn't really turn me off, but I was like, I'll make room for other games. I don't need to play that. One, I played a ton of prototypes, so the running up the wall and the jump and glide, like I was kind of sick of hearing that over and over and over. Reviews like, oh wow, this is great. You can get around the city so much faster. I'm like, Prototype did that 3 or 4 years ago.
Well, Hulk Ultimate Destruction, which was the prototype for Prototype.
The speed running looks really great. From what I can see, it doesn't look like the placement of the. I remember in Crackdown, like some of those things were tucked underneath some bridge and like really kind of tough to find. Where the point we made in the review is that like you just jump and like, oh, there they all are. So it feels more like kind of like doing laundry or just picking up these items. Rather
That's
than
not
like,
actually.
wow, I'm exploring the
I
environment.
will disagree with that.
But yeah, I'm not going to make an
disagree with
assertive comment on that because I haven't played the game.
No,
but,
you can see there are some tucked away under bridges, but there's also different ways of unlocking them that you don't get until you hit certain powers.
Just that it's fun to find those. So when you find
is.
one, it's like, oh, I'm so glad I ran to the top of this building and found this thing.
They are definitely useful, especially when it comes to powering up some of the some of the more blasty powers.
And just the aesthetic, just the whole like dark gray pink kind of vibe. It's like every time the game was being showed off, it's just the same, really dark, purple, simple. Man. Yeah, it just I don't know the environment, and I get that's just one environment, like that's just inside the Matrix or the simulation, but kind of looked one note a little bit to me.
So are you gonna pick it up? You think?
Probably not. I probably won't play that. But at the same time, it's tough. It's like a game that if I was gonna try to judge critically from a distance, I may have a problem here or there. But like I bet that game's so much fun. Like I bet if you put 20 hours in that game, you wouldn't
well, actually,
regret it.
Yeah, you can easily put in 20 hours and just not be. So let me just say, What Is Love by Hadaway,
right?
Aerosmith, Leave It to Beaver, Streets of Rage, and Mechs.
Thanks for sticking with us. We have Daniel Bloodworth here.
Hey.
Clean-shaven Daniel Bloodworth.
Oh,
Really
yeah.
clean-shaven.
This must be the theme. The guy in the middle will not have a beard.
Do you look at the memo?
I can see the stubble. Daniel is here to discuss the finer points of Sam Fisher's latest outing in Splinter Cell Blacklist.
Yeah, or how I did a 180 on a game that I thought I didn't have much interest in.
Well, it seems like everyone did that. I feel like this game has showed very, very poorly for the last year and a half, ever since it was debuted.
Well, the thing is, like,
it didn't seem like a
when
Splinter Cell
when
game.
they showed it off for the first time, it was part of the whole let's show every game having Connect. And Sam Fisher's running around in the desert in the daylight and like hanging from something, and the guy
it looked
shouts,
like an episode
"Hey,
of 24.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
he was punching a bunch of dudes and shooting a bunch of dudes and stuff.
Yeah.
It didn't have the flavor of Splinter Cell, which, despite the worst Splinter Cell you can think of, they were still always a Splinter Cell game.
Right.
And then they showed the multiplayer off pre-E3, which...
What was
I mean,
the return of...
multiplayer is
so
great.
like,
Yeah.
Spies
Yeah,
versus Mercs, which
yeah.
everybody seemed to like. I keep on want to say Spy versus Spy. There's a game I want to
they're so good.
reboot.
You can do that though in the team
But it's not,
deathmatch stuff.
it's not Spy versus Spy.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, they showed that off, but they haven't really shown a huge amount of single player, which is why a lot of people do buy Splinter Cell, and it's one of the reasons. I think that in the past, I mean, I'm with you. I mean, you are convincing me that I should go out and get this, but I'm still on the fence. I mean, I've just been burnt by Sam Fisher so many times.
Yeah. I actually.
Gonorrhea? Sorry.
I'm honestly in the kind of different position of I haven't played the last two games, so it really just
Which would be Double Agent and Conviction, right?
yeah. So like seeing like I didn't really see like how that stuff evolved and like how much this is going back to older things or anything like that. But
Well, at what point did you do your 180? Because like I saw your review, but like where's the 180 point? Are people going to be a little fed up when they first get the game, or
I think maybe because when I started, I was still kind of making fun of it because it's like there's all these, like you crash and there's all these explosions and everything, and then one of the first things in the tutorial is like you go into a dark area, and it's like when you go into the dark, these lights on your suit will light up, and I'm like, well, that's stupid. What's the point of that? But it's obviously just like for the player to see where your character is, but it's weird because there's bright green lights and nobody can see you.
cognitive dissonance?
But yeah, I also had that same feeling with like the upgrade system. Like they've implemented this whole like earning money to buy gadgets and guns and things like that, and they've brought it so much into the context of the game that it just makes sense. I'm like, we're on a flying airbase, and
Are they so broke now that they can't afford to get?
well, you're getting funding from the government, but you're trying to stop somebody from crippling the entire country. And the government's gonna like give you funding after every mission that's based on like your exploration and
that's
stuff.
the old
It's just-
RPG thing too, right? It's like we want you to kill the bad guy, but we won't give you the sword that you need until you give us $1 gazillion or whatever.
Yeah, well, I think the difference
here's
is
a
it's
little more.
generally.
Damn Democrats, man, underfunding this country.
They need a
I think,
garbage
but
chute.
yeah, I think that's the difference though. Is like there's a guy on your plane that you supposedly go to for these upgrades, but I'm like, you're on a plane. Like, what? You apparently you just have this stuff in a drawer to give to me. Like, why do I have to pay $15,000 for this pair of gloves? But aside from that, like the points and the reward system for each mission, I think really draw it out because then, like you can adapt the game to your play style, and you can see how doing different actions like they go into these 3 different buckets of like, okay, this is the ghost style, and this is the panther style, and this is the assault style, and
Panther
so
style sounds the coolest.
Do they have gopher style?
no, not quite.
Hamster
I think
style. Did it
I think
once,
that's if
can
you
never
just
do it
like
again.
pop out in front of a guy and get shot. I think
Orgasm.
that's gopher style. But yeah, I think I did my 180 probably somewhere like in the multiplayer sessions, like before we actually got into Spies versus Mercs, and I was playing just with another guy who hadn't really played the game much yet either, and like we're doing this co-op missions, and like these co-op missions had like this insta fail if you get spotted. So we're both having to work together and develop a plan, figure out where the guys are going to be. And a lot of those missions too, rather than be, okay, you get through this section and then you get through that section, which there are a lot of missions that are like that as well. But some of these co-op maps or optional maps, you have like a full space to work with, and you can tackle that space from whatever angle you can come at from it. Like one of my favorite levels is called Hacker's Den, and I can go into this building, and I've got like 3 different ways to go in and tackle like 3 different floors of guys that are in there, or I can go into the side building and clear that out, and then go into the other building from the other side, or there's just like a lot of different ways to move through that environment, and then you go back to the beginning to extract. And so that's what I kind of have liked, is just the diversity in what you can do with your tactics. And then there's also there's a lot of diversity just like in the amount of levels. Like there are those bright desert levels in like Iraq and Afghanistan, but then there's a lot of just classic Splinter Cell, going through the streets of London at night, or like going through like a shopping mall in Chicago and that kind of thing.
Is that insta spot game over scenario? Is that only in the co-op missions, or does that show up in the single player as well?
There's parts on the single player that are like that as well. Actually, when I went back to try to do a mission assault style, that was a little bit of my frustration, because it's like you're still kind of tacking this assault on the Splinter Cell, because at certain points I can't assault, and so what do I need to do to like get my assault score up to like master that playstyle for that level?
So it's still predominantly a stealth game, huh?
Yeah.
So I'm curious, Marcus, you have your insight as a former PR stooge. Do you think there was some mismarketing with this game when it was trying to set itself up maybe in the more of the scheme of the the Expendable 7 or something like that when it was first kind of debuted?
Well, I was a big critic of when they first debuted that footage, and like I said, it felt like an episode of 24, and I half expected them to say that Kiefer Sutherland will be voicing Sam Fisher as well,
Which they could have done, because they did the same thing that Metal Gear did. Like they got rid of Michael Ironside for the sake of somebody that could do performance capture.
Yeah,
And it's like the game doesn't look that great in the cutscenes, so what was the point of that?
And now performance capture is holding Half-Life 3 back. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
The world's crazy.
yeah, and I remember. I mean, I was at Ubisoft when Splinter Cell was kicking off, and I worked with Xavier Follieux, who was the producer on it at the time, because I was handling the Clancy stuff, and we sat down and talked about what Sam Fisher was and who was the voice, and talked about, does he have a family, and who does he work for with Third Echelon, and to jettison somebody like Michael Ironside in favor of something like performance capture is ridiculous to me, because again, performance capture is great. I'm not underestimating it or dissing it in any way, but you can have somebody do the performance capture, who is an actor, but in the game environment, the voice and the acting, that the characteristics that voice brings to a game character cannot be swapped out, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I mean, those early, I mean, that's the kind of thing, like, I don't know that I remember any of the storylines, the plot lines from a Splinter Cell game, but I definitely remember that dynamic between Fisher and Lambert. I mean, that was just part of it. That was the feel of the game, and those are really great voices to have with you in every mission.
I think the performance capture question is interesting, because you hear people shouting up and down that it's going to be like the savior, but like to the consumer level, it's like, yeah, why can't you have someone performance and then swap on someone else's lips and voice?
Well, not everybody's
But
Andy
is
Serkis.
it money? Yeah, no, but is it Andy Serkis is amazing. But is it the money, or are you really? I'm sure when Marco comes on, maybe he can give us his 2 cents.
Well, I'll
But
tell you
it's still
what
curious.
it is.
I think I'm ignorant. I'm definitely ignorant of something, because I don't see it as being then as a giant leap, maybe just an additional step.
So who is the new actor? I mean, I'm literally.
I've heard
David
his
Hayter.
name, but I don't know it off
That
top
would
of my
have been
head.
amazing, actually.
But I mean, this is the point. I mean, normally when you're going to have somebody in performance capture, they're normally going to change it up for a celebrity, whether it be like Kiefer Sutherland, so you can put him in the suit and you can, have that B-roll to show to people, isn't it fantastic, and blah, blah, blah. And that's normally just a PR move. I don't know what the deal is with Michael Ironside. Maybe, maybe there's voice issues. Maybe he's losing his voice. Who knows? But to me, he'll always be Sam Fisher. And I think that's the beauty of, whether it's voicing a game or a cartoon or whatever, when you create a character. Homer Simpson's the same thing. You can't have another actor be Homer Simpson. It's such a seminal
Well, I think
character.
with a long running franchise, like I think that there are reasons that you would expect an actor to change from time to time, just like with Bond. But like I don't,
But it
I don't
doesn't
think
have
that
to be
performance capture is really the best
Yeah,
reason.
it doesn't have to be the same reasons that it does for, a regeneration on Doctor Who or a new James Bond, which is the actors moving off to do something different or whatever. We're talking about the voice, which can continue and move forward.
Yeah.
And it's not as if Michael Ironside's in his, 90s and is on a Zimmer frame. I mean, he is definitely, he's still a relatively robust individual as far as I'm aware. I'm not on personal terms with him, but I would imagine.
Okay. Daniel, any just final parting words? I mean, obviously you have the score. You talked about the big change. I'm just curious if there's anything you wanted to finally get out there.
Yeah, I would just say, just give it a try because, like I said, I was making fun of it. I was in the Mega Man slide during the tutorial, it was like...
We have our top 5 stealth franchises coming up.
Yeah.
And, this game's out, and Metal Gear Solid 5 is going to be a while, I think. So people may want to check it out.
And Thief is going to be a while, too, so...
We are joined now by
Performance artist.
we are joined now by
just popped in.
our head troll who lives under the fucking bridge. This is Marco Versato. You may have seen him trolling Michael Damiani during some of our GT live streams.
Should do that a feature.
He
Damiani.
he's responsible for some of the motion graphics you see at GameTrailers and an occasional video edit here and there. And we brought him on because he is so excited about a game and he wanted to share. And I like when we get some of these games kind of highlighted, and it's Kerbal Space Program.
Kerbal Space Program.
And what are Kerbals?
They are indigenous to a planet called Kerbin, and I don't know where, but it's a really small planet. Yeah, I mean,
It really,
what do you want to
okay,
know? I
no,
mean,
but, like,
there's so many things to talk about.
It's
this
such
game.
but the Kerbals are so like an aside. I mean, this game is about modeling rockets and orbiting things and landing on planets. It's about being NASA, right?
It's a
It's
NASA,
rocket science.
Yeah, it's like if Minecraft is an architect sandbox, this is a NASA sandbox. Like the jigs of the game.
So why is rocket science fun? Like, why did this capture your
Initially,
imagination?
I didn't think it was gonna be fun. Like
But you bought
I
it.
just saw it on Steam and it was being promoted through their cards and all that stuff. They work. I guess.
It was one of the summer
Yeah.
ones too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I have seen things about it, and I thought, oh, this is kind of, I didn't really feel it until I started playing it, and it's just everything that should not be fun about a game is fun in that game for some reason. Just doing math and subtracting numbers to achieve orbits around planets and designing rockets with mass and weight in mind.
Were you a model rocket kid though, or is this like new for you?
No. This is like, I mean, I watch like documentaries on Discovery Channel, like where they say, "Oh, we sent this Voyager probe to Jupiter and Galileo to Saturn, whatever." And yeah, that's always interesting, but it's a realistic take on space travel, and a lot of people, like I know, like Dan and you and other people have seen me play it, and they say, "Oh, this is the next Minecraft." And in a way, for me it is, because it's a game that you can do things that the game was not designed for you to do.
Because the simulation is so large, right? Like
it's so open-ended.
It's not trying to expect things or close things off.
No, like you can make any type of vehicle. You can make planes, cars, rovers, submarines.
I like the idea of a space submarine.
You could do that. It's amazing. Like you could do a probe that's that's submergible and send it to a moon in Jupiter. I mean, they're not called Jupiter. They have other names like.
But they're stand-ins for our solar system, right?
Yeah, there's like Duna instead of Mars and stuff like that.
So do they have like lakes and stuff?
Does somebody hold the rights to the planets?
The
rights? Romans,
like the naming rights because they couldn't put them in there.
Who knows?
I'm just genuinely.
I guess the Greeks have the rights to the names because they're all Greek names.
Did I say
right?
Roman? Yeah, you're right.
Roman.
Greeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, my bad. My Latin teacher would
here.
kill me. The one thing I like about this game is this is a game where failure is really rewarding.
Okay.
Like visually, and you learn from it.
But if you are invested in making those rockets and you spend 2, 3, 4 hours creating the rocket, sending it to space, orbit, then deorbit to another planet, it's slingshotting, gravity to it's really, 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 really complex. Like docking and all that stuff. When you fail and you forgot to quick save at some point, it's other people you might laugh, but you get so angry. And on the flip side, I don't know if you guys seen like when NASA lands a rover on Mars or
they'll high five in the control room.
You see like the controller go boom and the exploder is like, and you don't get it's like, oh wow, that's exciting, but you don't. It's like, oh, these guys are obviously into it, but you don't get that feeling when you land those rovers, when you land those astronauts on other moons and planets. You jump off your seat. Like it's just so rewarding. And
see, the problem for me with this sort of game is always it looks cool and I hear all these cool stories, but then like you said, you're doing math. I'm fine with math, but I always feel like there's this barrier of entry. I'm like, can I invest enough time? Can you get into this game right away? Does it have like a tutorial that's
it's
not awful?
Again, like Minecraft, you need a wiki to kind of like, it doesn't teach you that well, but if you know the basics, I mean, logically, like, the bigger the object, the more fuel you need, and the bigger the rocket you need. Those things, it's just Lego at that point, but once you get into the intricacies of getting into orbit and oblong orbits and docking and rendezvousing in space, it sounds boring, I know.
No, it's cool.
But once you start like messing with those graphs and like aligning stuff in space and timing your burns and all those, I mean, I know like a lot of people that probably haven't played the game are like, what the hell is this guy talking about? Just try it and you'll get it. Like it's just really good.
Is there a multiplayer aspect though? Since you keep bringing up Minecraft,
I would love it for it to have a multiplayer. Like I've daydreamed about like, whoa, maybe like each player is an astronaut and they control a separate spaceship and they do like co-op missions to other planets and all that stuff. It'll be great. Right now, I don't think it's supported. I don't know if they talked about it, but it'll be really, really cool if they added that at some point.
I'm thinking an industrial espionage mission where you basically sneak in and mess with your equations just to try and mess up all that
you insert
work.
non-Euclidean geometry into there.
Oh, exactly.
Mess everything up.
Take all the 3's out of pi.
Well, you could do. You could do like space terrorism, like in a theoretical scenario. You could launch a missile. Like you could create a bomb in space.
Well, what if you blew up the moon and then all the tides stop, right?
You could.
It could be like the Bond film You Only Live Twice, where you've built your ship and you're going into the orbit, and this big ship comes in behind you and swallows your ship.
That's really cool. That prop is insane.
Yeah, I think you really like controlling the Kerbals in space, though. Like you can actually take them off the spaceship, and they can do EVAs, extravehicular activities.
And were you telling me like the one guy got stuck on the flagpole, and it's like there's been a ton of funny like animated GIFs on Reddit from this game. It's definitely a source of humor.
Yeah, like I plant
for being so
you
scientific.
plant the flag on the moon, and since the game's like really physics strict, like it simulates the physics, the astronaut can walk by the flag, and the flag like kind of like slingshots him, like it bends, and then boom, 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 and pew, when you lose them forever.
I think this is definitely a game I will watch.
Yeah, no, it's really,
I don't
really.
think I can play it.
I've been on the verge of maybe buying it. Like I got Prison Architect instead of it because I heard Prison Architect had a good tutorial, but during the Steam sale. But it's definitely on my wish list on Steam. And Marco, just really quick, since you are like this kind of motion graphics. Oh, you're right. You did some of the depths and some of the graphics stuff. Can you really quickly just give us your 2 cents on motion capture being a real? I mean, it's existed for a while, but why is it such a step up? Or is it?
In terms of
For game development or storytelling?
It's all about the performer. really. Like if you've been in VO booths and you sit there and you're like just narrating something and you have to imagine yourself in this scene. It's like, okay, now you're running through a forest and you're like, okay, hello, Elizabeth, run, all these things. And
so you're not saying it's from a tech side, you're saying it's all literally on the performance side.
It enhances the performance. Like you've seen those games that like in certain games, like the guy's running or jumping and what he's saying is totally detached from, it's like, oh no, he's like talking really softly, blah, 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 while doing these crazy actions. That's because obviously the performance is not tied to whatever he's being animated like to do. But for actors, like just performance capture, I mean, it's a big plus for them. In terms of animating like an actual character, like as you're playing the game, and his mocap is, I guess what's your question? Like, is it?
I'm just curious
up?
why everyone's like there's certain like technical directors and game designers who are saying it's like the future, even though it's existed for a while. And I just
since the 90s.
Yeah, I just don't see. I see the benefits, but I don't see it being like a panacea for what's ailing like game cutscenes or anything like that.
It helps with development a lot because hand animating is a real bitch.
No, yeah, I know. Keyframes?
Yeah,
no,
so
I know
having a guy just animate.
But
like,
why can't we do someone's voice in a VO booth and then put it onto the performance? Is it just too hard to kind of do that kind of fake sync?
That's part of it.
But we've done that before too.
But if you've got a really good actor, we're talking about the Michael Ironside thing.
Well, that's what I kind of brought up.
That's why it came up. The fact that they've dumped his voice and brought in another actor who can do performance capture and the voice. And I think that if you have a high quality actor, of which Michael Ironside, he's a bloody good actor. I think he could do that sort of thing. I mean, if you have jobbing no name coming from his waiting job, bless him, who has no experience of this, then I'd say, all right, well, you can't really slap that voice on this performance capture. That makes sense. But if you have a high enough quality actor, and I'm sure there are ways for him to, if he needs to do the out of breath or whatever, even if it's like him just doing the actions in the VO booth, because they're not tiny VO booths like, we have a small booth here at GT, which is, it looks like a porta potty. But, I mean...
It smells like one, too.
Well, that's Brandon's problem, not mine. But the booths that they record in for the audio, I mean, they're the size of this studio. You can bounce around a little. You can get into the role, and I'm sure some of these actors are very capable of doing that.
Well, I think motion capture is something that's been around for a while, just motion capping the entire body. But in the past 10 years, what's evolved to is performance capture, whereas you're not just acting with your body, you're acting with your face. Mm-hmm. So let's say getting David Hayter instead of Kiefer Sutherland. Kiefer Sutherland is an actor. I mean, I don't know if he's a great actor, but I'm sure he's a better actor than David Hayter. Boo. But
Marco's Twitter right here. You can disagree with him.
But yeah, like they're capturing the performance of that face, the intricacies of how his eyelids move.
No, see, I guess I understand each of the elements. I just want to see them add up. And I can understand them adding up to a degree, but in the end, I'm just not entirely sure. Mm-hmm. But I think we're running out of time at this point. But thank you for, if you ever find any other games, I know you're working on some cool graphics for Rob Manuel's Indie Game Manual. Yeah. Almost called it the other thing, which also has a ton of cool games that people should check out. Thank you for joining us as well, Mr. Bearded.
Next week, we can talk Infinity. Me and Brandon can talk Infinity.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
Speaking of confusing things, like of GTA's kind of confusing online messaging, that game, for parents, I'm just saying, who are maybe not so into video games, that game can be a little confusing. But we'll save it. It's cool.
You can watch my NBC LA cool segment
stuff.
This Saturday.
Cool
there is some crazy shit.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you.